Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Kerry Siggins, and I'm so glad you're here today. Today, my guest is Dre Baldwin. He is the CEO and founder of Work on Your Game Incorporated, and he is just so much fun. In 5 years, Dre went from his high school basketball team's bench to a 9 year professional basketball career. And he did it through building a framework of mindset, of discipline, of consistency, of intention. And he started putting videos of himself practicing on basketball out on YouTube. And this was before YouTube blew up. This was pre 2010. And he wanted to be able to see himself practice so that he could continuously get better. And then people would come and find his videos and start saying, "Hey, I don't know how to practice like this. What do you do?" And he's built this whole framework now called Work on Your Game, where he helps people build a roadmap in reverse to help them develop that mindset, develop strategy, develop accountability and execution in their lives and in their business. So, this is a super fun conversation. I know you're going to enjoy meeting Dre. So, hang tight and I will be right back with him. All right, everyone. I am back with Dre Baldwin. I am so excited to have you on this show today, Dre. Thanks for joining
I'm
me.
excited to be here, Kerry. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. All right. So, your company is Work on Your Game. Can you talk a little bit about what Work on Your Game is and how you help CEOs and companies build results?
Sure. So, Work on Your Game is derived from my background in sports and professional sports. Actually, really from my being on YouTube and a bunch of people watching me on YouTube and just asking about the mental tools that they could use to apply the tactical and strategic stuff I was showing them how to do on the court and how to actually make it all come together because they realized that they needed the mindset to do that. And then the other part of it was, Kerry, people just asking about me personally. This guy who only played 1 year high school ball, walked on to play Division III college ball with third tier of college sports and became a pro athlete. What's the mindset behind somebody who does that? So I extracted those pieces out and started explaining them to people. And then people who were not athletes, like these folks that are listening to your show, they started hearing those messages and saying, "Hey, Dre, this stuff applies to us the same way it applies to the ball players." So that's when I realized I had an opportunity to expand my reach beyond just athletes. And that's what I've been doing since, well, I stopped playing ball in 2015. So that's what I've been doing ever since really about 2010, but full time since then. And it's really about helping the professionals and the entrepreneurs use the same tools to help athletes get to the top 1% of the sport game and using those same mental and strategic tools to get to the top 1% of your game.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this mindset and how you developed it
Sure.
because going from 1 year of playing high school ball to D3 ball to professional, that takes a lot of gumption, a lot of persistence, practice, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
how did this mindset develop and really help you get to where you were at the top of your game?
Well, how it developed was really something that I guess you could say somewhat organically, because it wasn't until the players started asking me about it that I started talking about mindset. Because really, when I first started putting content out 20 years ago, I was really just showing basketball players how to practice because it it was a surprise to me to find out that most basketball players didn't practice the way that I did. Because I would go to the gym every day, carry and just work on my game. I thought that was normal. But then I realized most players didn't do that. So when I kept doing it, they would ask me stuff like, "Why do you work out every day? How do you bring yourself to do it?" Not why, but how do you bring yourself to do it? Because a lot of players, they want to do it, but they don't actually do it. Like I'm sure, Kerry, you talk to a lot of people who want to have a podcast, but they don't have one. Or they want to write a book, but they never actually wrote it, right? They want to do these things, but don't actually do it. So how did you get yourself to actually do it? What's going on in your head that's not going on in my head? That's what they were asking. That was the discipline piece. Then it was, okay, Dre, anybody knows anything about sports, Kerry, knows that you get one chance. Like you might practice for years. Like think about the Olympics. You practice for 4 years to get one shot, right? Or you're trying out for the high school team. You practice for 364 days to get one day of an opportunity. So how do you get yourself ready and primed to perform when the lights come on? If you're a professional speaker or you give a TED talk, you do all that practice and you get that 20 minutes, 30 minutes to give your speech. If you mess up, that's it. You don't get a chance to do it again. So that was the confidence piece. The third part was, okay, you face these setbacks or you just face the circumstances. It just seems like nobody becomes successful coming from the background that you come from. With your pedigree, it doesn't make sense that you got to where you got to. So how did you keep going when things were simply not working in your favor? And to answer that question, that was the mental toughness piece. And then the last one was, well, how do you get started even doing these things? So I see what you did, but How do you even move yourself to, get up off the couch and actually do something? How do you move yourself to break the inertia of the situation and be that outside force that moves you to action, that motivates yourself to action? 'Cause that's all motivation is, just the impetus that moves you to action. Or how do you get started playing overseas? Or how do you get your name known on the internet? Or how do you get yourself booked to speak on the stage as a professional speaker? Or how do you start, getting coaching clients? All these things that people want to do, but they don't actually do it. How do you actually write a book? It's not like you have to get approved by anybody. Why? Well, how do you do it? So it was the personal initiative. That was the fourth piece. So all these pieces I'm telling you, they came from these questions that people were asking, Kerry, but I hope you're seeing the parallels that you could take my situation out of it, but these applied all across life, all across the board to anything that you do.
Absolutely. And so I want to dive more into that, but I'm just curious, back then when you started, what made you decide that you wanted to create your YouTube channel and start creating this type of content and teaching people?
So what happened was, since I came out of a Division III school, no pro basketball team was calling my phone asking me to come play for them. So when I graduated from school in 2004, my first job was not basketball. My first job was at Foot Locker. I was a assistant manager. Then I went and worked at a gym called Valley Total Fitness. You remember them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they're out of business now, not because of me. I sold a lot of memberships for Valley Total Fitness. All right, I might be the reason why they went out of business actually because I sold so much that their bad practices got exposed. But anyway, in 2005, that summer, I went to this event called an exposure camp. Exposure camp is like a job fair. Everybody knows what that is. All right, so it's a job fair for athletes. Now, at this job fair, you don't bring your resume and wear a suit. You bring your sneakers and shorts and you play. So these are all ball players who think they're good enough to play pro, but we're not playing right now. So we go there to showcase ourselves and hopefully get a new opportunity. So it's kind of like a casting call. And the people in the audience are not just random people off the street. These are agents, coaches, scouts, managers from basketball teams all around the globe. They come to these events as destination events looking for their next employees. I went to one of those events and I played pretty well. And that's really what became the launch pad of my playing career because the footage from that event was on this thing called a VHS tape. You remember those? Carry
Oh, yeah.
VHS? Yeah. All right. So any Gen Zers listening to this, ask your parents or Google it and you find out what a VHS tape is. So that VHS tape was the most important footage of me playing basketball that existed. So I didn't want to lose it. So I took it to an audio visual store and had them put it on a data CD so that I could put it in a digital format. And then I uploaded that footage to YouTube. So that's how I started on YouTube with that footage. I was not trying to showcase myself on YouTube. I was
Right.
just putting it there just in case I lost the VHS tape. That's the only reason I did it. And when I got this cheap little $100 camera, maybe a year later, I would just take the camera with me to the gym and I would just record myself working out. And I would just want to see myself. I just wanted to see me on camera and see if it looked the way that I thought that it looked. And I would put a
Yeah.
couple of videos on, but I wasn't trying to get anyone else's attention. It was just for me. But then people saw it and they would leave comments like, hey, who are you? Who do you play for? And that's when I realized there was an underserved audience of people who wanted to learn the game but they didn't have anywhere to learn it, and they were going to the internet to get answers. Whereas if you come from my era or our era, Kerry, you either knew somebody or you were basically out of luck when it came to getting knowledge or information about something. Or I mean, I guess you went to the library or something, but I don't think you learned basketball in the library. So they were going to YouTube to find this information, and they were finding me, and they would ask the kind of questions that I'm the type of person. My superpower, Kerry, is being able to notice what questions somebody should be asking, even if they're not asking it. So by the comments they were leaving, I realized that they wanted to learn, but they didn't know how to ask. And
Yeah.
that's when I said, okay, I work out every day anyway. Why not just film myself and put this stuff out? And I can help these players out. And who knows, I get a little bit of attention on this website. I didn't know it was going to become anything. There was no big grand scheme here. I wasn't selling anything. I had no products. There was no ad revenue. There was nothing to gain from doing this. I just said, okay, I can get a little bit of attention. It serves my ego. They're looking at me like the person who can help them. So that's why I started. It wasn't until about 2009 that the monetization options started to become more clear.
Interesting. Okay, so obviously you didn't have this vision of being an entrepreneur and a coach and a teacher. You wanted to play basketball. So what was your vision for yourself? Because obviously to go in to the gym every single day,
Mhm.
to have that kind of accountability and that personal drive, what was the vision that you had for yourself?
Well, you got to go back in the story again. Let's go back to about 2002. So I was in college from 2000 until '04, graduated in '04. Now in 2002, I responded to a bulletin board posting. So again, Gen Zers don't know what a bulletin board is. It's like the internet, but a physical version where you had to actually physically see stuff. So I responded to a bulletin board posting that said, if you want to make some money in the summertime, call this number. Now, mind you, I'm a college athlete. So people who don't understand the college landscape 20 plus years ago, it's basically like having two jobs because you had to be a full-time student to play. And then you have
Yeah.
this commitment to the team. And at this time, there's no name, image, and likeness deal. So you can't make money.
Nope.
You legally, it was against the rules for you to make money based off of your athletic ability. So college athletes are really broke. College students are broke, but college athletes are really broke. So we didn't have any money. So I responded to that. I want to make some money. And this guy happened to be a network marketer. Now, I didn't know anything about network marketing, but I went to a couple of the meetings when I got home to, I'm from Philadelphia, by the way. So went to school at Penn State, Altoona. I went home to Philadelphia and I went to a couple of the meetings. And there were two things that happened at that meeting. Number one, the man on the stage was talking about principles of money making, entrepreneurship that I had never heard before, even though I have a business degree. So I was thinking to myself, why aren't my college professors teaching the stuff that this guy's talking about? Because I learned more in 1 hour from this guy than I learned in 4 years of college about entrepreneurship. Second thing is, this guy said, when you leave the room, there's a table outside with these nice ladies. You need to buy the books that they're selling because those books are personal development. Because when you go to a network marketing meeting, half the people in the room are already doing the business and half of the people are like me, they're the guests. So he was saying to the people in the business, if you're going to build a business, you got to build yourself. You cannot grow a business any more than you grow you. And I said, that makes a lot of sense. I never heard anyone say that, but it makes sense. So that was the first time I heard anyone mention the phrase personal development. I'd always been a reader, but I didn't know there was a genre just for making yourself a more valuable person. So I looked at the books on the table, which I did not buy because I was a broke college kid, remember? So I remembered the books though. I remembered the authors. It was Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill, Zig Ziglar. I never heard of these guys, but I said, if these books will make me a more valuable person, I want to get them. Didn't buy them, but I went on eBay when I got back to school. Now, mind you, this is before Amazon was a place to buy books, eBay. I went on eBay and I bought a couple pirated versions of a couple of the books. So I bought Thinking Over Rich by Napoleon Hill. That was the first book that showed me that there was a conscious and intentional process you can follow to make yourself a more valuable person. You could do it on purpose by changing the way you think. And the other one was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that was a book that really, in addition to the network marketing meeting, started to explain that there's a whole other way that you can live professionally besides working a 9 to 5 job. And Robert Kiyosaki was explaining the skeleton of it. He was really focused on real estate, but the principles of entrepreneurship were explained in that book. And that's what planted the seed in my head here, Kerry. So I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, but after basketball. So I'm going to play basketball
Yeah.
first, then I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Now, what happened was there were some gaps in my career in basketball. And in those gaps, that's when I started to build the entrepreneur stuff.
What a great story. I love that. Oh, it's always amazing to hear those journeys. So, before we jump into a little bit more about what you talk about and work on your game and your content, what was it like to stop playing basketball?
It was fine for me. It was fine for
Yeah.
me because I voluntarily stopped playing. So it's not like I tell people it's basically three ways you end up out of the game. One, you limp out of it because you physically can't play
Mhm.
anymore. Two, nobody wants you. So you kind of crawl out of it. Or one day you wake up and realize that your career's over. You're the last person to find out. Or three, you just choose to walk away because you don't want to do the work that comes with staying at that level. And I had gotten to the point where I didn't want to do that work anymore. And the work being, when you're a professional athlete, you're working out 2, 3 times a day. You
Mhm.
have to do that in order to stay on par with the rest of the players. And I knew I wanted to work out every day, just not 2 or 3 times. And I also knew that there were opportunities for me outside of the sports realm because of this other stuff that I had been slowly building. And I was meeting people who were actually doing those things. And I said, this is an opportunity for me here. And I see more potential for the future of me in this lane than the future of me in basketball. Because in sports, you get old fast. By the time you're over 30 in sports, you're old. So I knew that
Yes, you are.
right. I knew the next 10 years of my entrepreneurial career had more potential than the next 10 years of my sports career. So I said, let me go the entrepreneur route. I'm gonna walk away now. So that's why I walked away. So it was easy for me. It
Yeah.
wasn't hard.
I know, I know. When you watch the Lakers play, you're like, "Ooh, that's what it looks like when you're over 30 and playing."
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about how you work with your clients. So can you walk me through the process that you help entrepreneurs and business leaders do to be able to improve their performance?
Sure. So our framework is 4 simple pieces. The first piece is the mindset. And we talked about that already. So every piece has sub pieces, but the mindset we've already discussed. Second piece is the strategy. Strategy is just a plan of action. And the way we help people strategize is we use what we call a roadmap in reverse, where we basically look at where they want to be and we just deconstruct from where they want to be back to where we are right now. And of course, we have to factor in contingencies. Well, if this piece doesn't work, do we have an alternative? Do we have another way to go? And we basically map out in the opposite direction how we're going to get from here to there with a plan. The third piece is the system. And the system is simply once we find a strategy that works, because the plan that we map out is not going to go perfect. So we have to work through it. Once we find something that does work, or even pieces of it that work, we create a system out of that. Okay, so we can systematize this piece here, this piece over here, this piece over there, such that we can execute pieces of the strategy over and over and over again and get the exact same result every time. So it's similar to how McDonald's or Starbucks, if you go to McDonald's and Starbucks in Denver, I go to the one in Miami, you get the same food, same coffee, not because the people who work there are geniuses, but because the system is so great that it doesn't matter who works there. And eventually those people won't work there. It'll be robots, different conversation. And then the last piece is the accountability. And the accountability is how do we make sure that not only the people are doing what they're supposed to do, because I find, Gary, that high level performers like being held accountable. They want to be held accountable and they will seek out accountability because they know that's what got them to where they are and what keeps them up. But also to make sure that the strategy and the system are doing their jobs. Because if the strategy is being executed properly, but we're still not getting a result, that means we need to fix the strategy. So sometimes it's not the person that needs to be edited. Sometimes it's the strategy. So those are our four pieces: the mindset, strategy, the system, and the accountability. And the mindset is always the foundation, is the most important part. Because what I've found is that until a person changes their mentality, their mindset, Kerry, they are ineligible to change their actions. Because people won't change actions until they change their way of thinking. So that's why the mindset is so important over here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And do you find that people have a hard time changing that mindset? How do you
Mm,
work with them on that?
absolutely.
How do you help people who are really stuck change that mindset?
That's a great question. So there are two schools of thought here, and I work with one or the other depending on the situation. So actually, it's really three. So let's talk about all three. So one is the person who says, "I'm stuck. I can't get out of it, and I can't do anything about it," and they aren't really open to changing their thought processes. We try to get those people out of our world. All right. So you have
Yeah.
attraction marketing, we have rejection marketing. So we want to keep those people away from us. We don't want them in our space. Then you have the second type of person who says they're stuck and they know they're stuck and they know that what they're doing is not working and they admit to the fact that I need help. I need to do something different. Those people have potential. Those people we can work with. And then the third type is the person who already believes it. They already understand, even if they're not stuck. I just want someone with me. I want someone holding me accountable. I want someone to keep me sharp. I'm already at the top. I want to stay at the top and I'm willing to invest in staying at the top. Those are our ideal people. Those are people we most like working with, even though I've gone through different mentalities on this over the years, but I have enough experience to know that you try to turn too many frogs into princes, you get tired of kissing frogs.
Yeah.
And you rather work with the people who already have the mentality and help them go further than try to take people who don't have it and try to install it in them because it's a lot more work. A lot of times they are resistant. A lot of times they don't even appreciate what you're doing because they really don't want to change. And I'd rather work with people who are already converted than trying to preach to the people who don't come to church, as they say. As they say, preach to the choir. Now, the choir, they came to church. Don't go outside the
Yeah.
church and try to preach to the people standing on the corner across the street. If they see the church, if they want to come in, they come in. A couple different ways that I look at it, but there are some people who I do work with who are not there yet, but they're coachable. So as long as they're coachable and they're open-minded, and this is something I tell them about, you need to be coachable, you need to be committed, and you need to be willing to get uncomfortable because this is going to be part of the game. As long as they
Mhm.
accept that, then we can move forward.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people are, I think, in that mindset space, when they think like, I can't change, I can't think differently, I can't be differently. I was actually just having this conversation about like childhood trauma and where does childhood trauma fit in? Do we have to be defined by it? And my answer is only if you choose to, right? It's all about the meaning that we choose to place on our experiences. That is what either holds us back or allows us to move forward. And you can choose to put different meaning to that experience. And so, yeah, I'm stuck. I've made bad decisions in business
Mm,
and I can't get myself out of it. You can absolutely just say, I am going to look at that differently. And it's so interesting how many people struggle with that. Like, how can I? Well, you can just choose to. You can say, I am going to look at this differently. I'm going to attach different meaning to this thought that I'm having. It's not easy to do, but my book, The Ownership Mindset, like that is 100% what this is about. When you take responsibility for everything that happens in your life, you empower yourself to change your life.
That's right.
But it's tough. Yeah, not everybody sees it that way.
Agreed. And it's funny because we had this thing I call it the 12 work on your game commandments. And the first commandment is ownership, full ownership. You have to take complete responsibility for everything that you touch, because when you take responsibility, you have the ability to respond. And that comes with a package deal with power and influence. And everybody wants power and influence, but then people don't want to take the responsibility that comes with it.
Yep, I agree completely. All right, let's talk a little bit about discipline and consistency because you proved that as a professional athlete, going from not being a star in high school or playing for a big D1 school to being able to play professional basketball. And you talk about the consistency that you have. Can you talk about discipline and consistency in the business and the workplace and how important it is to success?
The hallmark of the professional. The number one attribute that you will notice in the professional is that they are disciplined and their work is consistent, which means you know exactly what you're going to get from them. And what I explain to people is that dictionary definition of a professional is a person who does something as their main paid occupation. Now, how can you get paid for something consistently? The only way you can get paid consistently is you have to deliver consistently. So the further extended definition, the work on your game definition, Kerry, is that the professional is a person who shows up and delivers every time, regardless of how they're feeling. Because there will be days that you don't really feel like delivering, but you still have to. We call those days the third day. It's all about how you show up on that third day and deliver, even when you don't feel like working out, you don't feel like practicing, you don't feel like putting those leads in the CRM, you don't feel like taking these prospect calls, you don't feel like talking to your clients, but you do it anyway because it's your job and it's your responsibility, especially when you have people who work for you, people who are subordinate to you because they're all following your energy. So if you don't feel like working, what are they going to do? Of course, they're not going to show up. That's why discipline is so important. And if anyone ever asked me, Dre, what's the most important internal attribute that you would say played the biggest role in what I've created? The answer is always discipline. A lot of people think there will be confidence, but it's not confidence, it's discipline, because confidence is derived from discipline. So that's the biggest thing in what we do is discipline.
Can you go a deeper dive into what you mean by the third day? Because I
Sure.
love this philosophy. So
Sure.
describe it more in depth.
All right, let me give you an example. So let's say somebody who has taken some time away from the gym, they haven't worked out for a while, and they decide they want to work out again. They haven't been there for 6 months or a year. And they go hire a personal trainer and they sign up for a boot camp class. They got a gym membership. They're all excited to go. So they go to the gym that first day, new workout gear, new workout sneakers, everything. They got their trainer and they're all ready to go. Let's do it. Let's lose this weight. Let's get this six pack. Let's get these muscles, whatever it is they want to do. And the trainer kicks their butt that first workout because I've worked at gyms before. So I know what we do this on purpose. So when you join the gym and you get the free session that you get with a trainer in any gym, we deliberately try to make you feel as out of shape as possible so that you realize how badly you need the gym. And then we try to sell you personal training while you're tired. That's the whole business model. And it works. So the trainer is going to kick your butt the first workout just to show you how badly you need him. And you're going to drag yourself home and you're going to look yourself in the mirror. You're going to say, hey, I'm doing this. It's rough. You're tired, but I'm doing it. It's only the first day of something that you signed up for. So the second day, you drag yourself into the gym or you walk in, but you're a little bit sore. Half your body's sore from day one because you haven't worked out in a long time. And the trainer knows this, so he push you even harder on the second day. You drag yourself home, and with a little bit less enthusiasm, you say, hey, I'm doing this. Now, by the third day, things are already starting to change. By the third day, your workout sneakers feel like they're made of cement. You don't really want to go into the gym. Gyms usually put a friendly face at the front desk just to set the tone when you walk in. You don't want to talk to that person because your energy is not matching their energy that day. You don't want to hear your trainer's mouth. It's one of those days that really what you want to do is roll over in bed and just grab your phone and text your trainer, hey, I'm not coming. Just charge me for the session. I'm not coming. All right. That's the third day. You really don't really want to be there. And the third day is not even about the occurrence of this happening because everybody has this happen. If you have kids, this happens. If you're in a relationship, this happens. If you have a business, it happens. Any venture that you get into, you write a book, it happens. You hit that wall where you're like, I really don't feel like doing this. Do I even want to keep doing this? And the third day is the decision that you make at that moment. Is a decision. And that's why the subtitle of the third day concept is the decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. So we just talked about what a professional is, person who delivers even when they don't feel like it. Whereas an amateur, Kerry, they have the luxury of not showing up when they don't feel like it because nobody's
Yeah.
paying them. See, if nobody's paying you and you don't show up, nobody can complain. But see, if they're paying you and you don't show up, they can complain. and then get their money back. So as a professional, you are obligated. As soon as you take the money, you're obligated to do the job. And the third day is about the decision that you make when you don't feel like fulfilling that obligation, but you don't have a choice but to fulfill the obligation. And what we do is try to give you a strategy and a system for showing up on the third day, not just motivation, because motivation is not as consistent. It's unreliable. It comes and goes. You never know when you're going to have it or not have it, but you got to deliver every day.
Oh, I love it. It's fantastic. So that's what's inspired you to write the book. I mean, how many books have you written?
35, but who's counting?
That is impressive. 35 books. Is a third day your most recent book?
It's technically not the most recent, but it's the one that I talk about the most because it's the one that people
Uh,
most connect with. It's the most
yeah,
popular,
absolutely.
probably. Yeah.
All right. So tell me, as you're working through with clients who are really interested in improving their performance, improving their game, improving their business growth, what is the biggest roadblock? What do they trip up on the most? Is there a common thing that you see?
It's a good question. After mindset, I mean, everything kind of comes back to mindset. So it's funny that
Yeah,
way.
I know.
It's that people have these false beliefs, which is a form of mindset. It's these things that they think it has to go one way, but it doesn't have to go that way. So it's really about breaking the mental inertia. And
Yeah.
inertia is just when we get into a certain state, it's easier to stay in that state, even if it's not serving us, than it is to change because and especially as we age, because the older that we get, the more ingrained these habits become. And we have habits of thought, we have habits of action, we have habits of response. It becomes so habitual for us that it's hard to do something different because we're so used to doing the same thing, especially if you have some level of success. And the funny thing is, Carrie, the more successful a person is, the harder it is to break their habits. The person who is less
Right.
successful but is wanting to be successful, they want to be more, they're more willing to open up and change than someone who has a higher level of outcomes to that point just because they have the false beliefs in their head. The funny thing about the question is everything comes back to the way a person thinks because you
Yeah.
can't change your actions without changing your thoughts. Every action is a result of some sort of thought, some chain of thinking that led to that behavior. So it's all mindset. It just depends on what in the mindset because different people have different challenges. So some people I work with, they have a business challenge. Hey, I just want to bring in more clients more consistently. Or another person may want to bring in more clients, but it's not the ads, is that they're afraid to get on the phone and make cold calls. And then there's another person who just doesn't know how to build a sales funnel. So people can be at so many different levels. And there are also people who are doing great money wise, but then everything else outside of work is suffering because of the greatness of their work. So I'm not spending as much time with my wife. I'm not taking time with my kids. I'm gaining weight
Yeah.
because I'm not working out anymore. So these kind of things can happen as well. And then I work with serial entrepreneurs who are starting another new venture and they're good at doing things on their own, but they're not good at their communication skills, sometimes great on their teams. So they're like, Drake,
Mhm.
can you help me with my language or how I'm talking to people and the way that I'm saying things, the way I'm wording things, so they can get across in such a way that they get the point, but they're not offended and I don't lose them. Like I don't want to step all over them to where they're no longer useful. So it's so many different challenges that I run into. It's not even that I hardly see the same thing twice, believe it or not.
I'm really glad that you bring up the personal life aspect because I think that is so important. I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs and leaders think like, oh, I work on my game. It's all about what I'm doing at work. What is my career? How
Right.
am I growing my business? But you're right. Well-being is your whole life. It's a holistic approach and you can be doing great at work, but yeah, if your family is suffering or your health is suffering, are you really on top of your game? And the answer is no. So I think that's just such an important aspect to bring into this is you have to look at the whole picture when you're working on yourself.
Absolutely, because your game is affected by everything. So what happens at work affects
Mhm.
home, and what happens at home affects work. And
Yeah,
all of those pieces are together, especially if you're in a leadership position in either space. If you're a leader at home, then what's happening at work is going to affect how everybody else at home is
yeah.
experiencing you. And if you're a leader at work, what's happening at home is going to affect how your work people are going to experience you. So it's all interconnected. And that's why even with our program, I don't say my program is for any certain type of outcome that we produce for people specifically. It is not for a specific type of industry because we have people in all different types of industries with all different types
Mhm.
of challenges.
That's great. All right. So as we wrap things up here, I want to ask you my signature question. I'd be really curious to hear your answer.
Okay.
The name of this podcast is Reflect Forward. In the context of everything we've been talking about today, what does Reflect Forward mean to you?
It means thinking about what you would want the person who's 10 years older to say to you now, and basically putting yourself in the shoes of the 10 years from now, you, with the success that you expect to achieve, assuming we have high achieving people listening to the show. And what would 10 years from now you say to you today?
I love it. That's a great answer. Thank you. All right, Dre, how can people find you?
Well, you can find me on all the socials. I'm on every social media app. Everything's public. We're pretty active on every app, probably most active on Instagram. Instagram is just my name at Dre Baldwin. And then you can just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where our focus is right now.
Wonderful. And so what is Work on Your Game University? Is that like an online platform? What are you doing with that?
Yeah, that's the place where we do all of our programs, all our coaching, all of our
Yeah.
consulting. Everything's under the umbrella of the university. So that's where our
Yeah.
focus is. Of course, we have the books and all that stuff, emails we send out and all of that, but everything
Mhm.
starts and ends with the university.
Wonderful. Great. Well, I'll include all that in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on and having this very fun conversation and walking us through your career, your experience, and your expertise. It's been incredibly insightful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kerry, for sharing your platform. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, everyone, hang tight and I'll be right back. All right, everyone, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed that interview. 35 books. That is just so incredibly stunning. I mean, I've written one. Can't even imagine 35, but maybe someday. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out his Work on Your Game University and check out some of his books. All right, with that, I will leave you for your day. Thank you for joining me on Reflect Forward. If you like this podcast, please write a review, share it with a friend, subscribe to it on your podcast platform on YouTube, and help me spread the word. Thanks so much. Take care. We'll see you next week.